Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Our show today is From Data Chaos to Revenue Clarity, the AI agent revolution in B2B sales. Now, if you've watched the show regularly for a while, you'll notice that the person sitting next to me here on the screen has been here before. So Toni Keskinen, and he's the co-founder, CPO, and chairman of 180 Ops. So Toni, welcome back.
So happy to be back. Thank you for inviting.
Well, this is a fun topic, and we had a conversation last week about this a little bit, which got me to thinking again about sales and kind of how we approach this, and I think you guys have really worked towards an understanding of the real base problem here. If you start talking about all these great AI things, agentic and everything, is data. So I think that'll make a really good basis for this conversation, and I'm excited to get into it. But for folks who don't know you and don't know 180 Ops, why don't you give us a little introduction and tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at 180 Ops, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Okay, happy to do so. So I am the CPO, co-founder, and chairman, and father of the product, really. I have plus 25 years of experience in turning data into insights in telecom, retail, wholesale, banking, financing, energy, software, and so on. And it has always been about creating strategic segmentations, discovering competitive advantages, creating channel strategies, and so on, loyalty programs, and so on. Well, enabling and accelerating transformation programs. In other words, making sense of data. And this journey of my empirical insight work revealed a lot of blind spots that management should know about and really understand. And these blind spots became the foundation for 180 Ops, because there really isn't any other tools to shed light on those. And at 180 Ops, our goal is to enable companies to become best versions of themselves by leveraging their assets and offerings to the maximum benefit of the customer's benefit. And this means humanly that we want to enable people to understand the world they are operating in, understand how they can turn market changes from risks to opportunities. We really want people to thrive, meet and exceed their expectations and goals and KPIs. And in order to make this possible, what we have created is the way to bring data together by bringing in your own data from CRM, ERP, agreement management, and customer success management, marketing automation, SSO, IoT, and so on, and enrich it with external data about the customers and companies, and what's happening in those companies, how are they changing, as well as macroeconomic environment changes, because whatever happens in macroeconomic environment, it has an impact on the customers, and by causality also on the customer relationships. And bringing the data together, connecting, cleaning, enriching it is the fundamental part of our value proposition, because without it, we wouldn't be able to deliver advanced analytics, and advanced analytics breathe life into the data. And we become really great at it because it's a mission critical requirement.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the foundation of everything that we're looking at today when we talk about building all the AI up. And I feel like that's a topic that does not get nearly the attention it needs, right? Well, I know you've written several books around this whole area, 5 books, I think, and you've been involved in this for many years, 25 years or so. You don't look like it's been 25 years, by the way. I probably should say that. But when you look at B2B companies today, what do you think is the biggest misconception is about data readiness? around AI, enabled sales, sales ops. And what do you think the difference
Mm,
is between having data and having useful data?
this is a good one. Um, the fundamental challenge is that the systems that create the data have been designed to serve a certain purpose for a
Mm,
certain type of people. These systems have been designed, they have never been designed to be used for overall management.
right.
And right now, what companies are doing, they are creating huge data warehouses and data lakes, and dumping all the data they have in as is format. And now that makes the data available, but not directly useful. So and it's also good to recognize that not all data is created equal. You need to have a really clear vision about what do you want to know and what are
Mm,
you going to do with it in order to create the necessary data recipe and meet the requirements for that specific purpose. Hardly any insight can be created from a single data source. So the logic of what's happening becomes visible by connecting the data sets and learning about the phenomena and correlation and causality. And
mm,
of course, the outcomes are important, but it's also important to understand what drives those outcomes. And what
mm,
companies also struggle with is to understand that the choice of technology matters. For example, LLM models and neural networks-based solutions explain the outcome. They come to a conclusion, but don't explain it. And now, if you get an outcome without explanation, you can't manage with that because management is really about understanding the levers, what to push or what to pull in order to create an impact. And if you
mm.
don't have that, the outcome is actually meaningless.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so it's so it's really about understanding the use case and transforming the data, connecting, enriching the data in a way that it can be then used with, for example, RACs and MCP to be used for LLM and agentic use cases.
Mm,
And yeah, that's what we've also been delivering and creating
mm,
that kind of capability. But creating it useful, it needs to have relations, it needs to have links, it
mm.
needs to have a purpose. And if it's not connected, you don't have that.
Yeah,
It's just data.
yeah. Yeah, that it used to we used to talk a lot about big data and
Yeah.
all the things that went with it. And I had this stick that I did around it that I thought was kind of made the point is that big data is useless. It's big in its data, but it's useless, right?
Yes,
But
yes, yes,
smart data, data in context, that's usable. And that's what you have to
yes.
get to, not big, right?
Not big. Big doesn't mean meaningful.
Not and
It's
not
actually
useful
in
either.
many cases that it's that the best type of data is the small data. You just
Yeah.
recognize the simple two data points that make sense, and then you analyze those, not the
Yeah.
whole nine.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it makes sense to me. So, the name 180 Ops kind of got my attention when we first met a while ago, and it really, in my mind, means that you're talking about a real fundamental shift in the way we think about sales ops and the data around that. So, and
Mm,
I know, and I've heard you guys use this outside in, bottom up thinking.
mm,
What does that actually mean? And then how does that approach change, what sales teams do to interact with their data and how,
mm.
how's that different from this old kind of top down method that we've used for, well, a very long time?
It all comes down to being evidence based. Um,
Mm,
how we think about strategy is to understand the customers and markets. How can we help
mm,
them? The customers have jobs to be done. The companies have offerings to serve those
right,
jobs. And different types of customers have different jobs to be done. So that means that we have segments. And the maximization of the company's assets value and offering value is really like a zipper. You need to connect the jobs to be done with your offerings and maximize the customer relationship in that sense. And
Mm.
that creates maximal, much higher offering penetration, average revenue per account, lifetime value, customer relationships. And outside in is really about understanding customers, their needs from the evidence we already have in our data. We just need to surface it. It's bottom up because the customer's behavior is the foundation for strategic view. So it's not like we look at the macroeconomics and research and decide that this is the world we want to go to. We look at the customers, how they behave, and then create bottom up the view that these are our purposes, well, our opportunities. This is what we can do. This is the potential in the market. This is how we maximize our value. And so basically we are in a journey to change the way B2B companies are managed.
Mm.
And for sales,
I mean,
it's about demand. It's not about sales.
mhm,
It's about understanding demand and serving those needs.
mm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think, for years I've surveyed buyers trying to understand behavioral changes, and for the last 15 years or so, buyer behavior has shifted greatly, and I would
It
argue
has.
that sales has not actually shifted that much. So, that's kind of an issue. But one of the things that I learned through those surveys was if you ask somebody when do they want to be contacted by a salesperson, they're going to come up with any other way but being contacted. In fact, like
Mm,
68% in my last survey said that they only wanted to be contacted once they had decided what they wanted to buy, which is kind of a problem if you're not the one they decided to buy. But the one thing that
yeah,
changed that, and I think this is really ties into what you just said, is that if you ask them if a seller approached you with something that was in the right context and was relevant to something you were trying to do, then they want to be contacted immediately because then you
yeah,
have immediate path to value, which is something that's very different than what happens from a lot of the SDR BDR outreach that's
yeah.
cold and not even using the available data. It really is just pure pounding on doors and hoping somebody will answer.
Well, this is something in B2B sales compared to consumer businesses. The motivation of the company is way easier to understand based on
Mm,
their financial data. Are they making profit or loss? Are they hiring or firing
right.
people? Are they opening new offices and so on? So
Mm,
the mental needs and pains and challenges that the company is facing is readily available in the financial databases, pretty
mm.
much. And that's not true.
Sense.
You can't do the same with the consumer data, not as
Right.
easily. But for B2B, it's actually, yeah. And when there has been, one of my clients actually made a study about what makes a company's salespeople to stand out and create competitive advantage. And the
Mm,
customers clearly pointed out that the salesperson understands my situation and the salesperson has advice. What should I do? Because, and that's the changing in perception. What customers are now expecting is that salespeople are professionals in the field they operate in. They expect salespeople to be
mm,
ready to advise them that this is what you should be doing. These are the challenges and these are the solutions. This is what you should be doing. And if you don't have that, you're just a salesman. You're just bringing
right.
products to the table and leaving all the sense making for the customer. And
Right.
they don't need a salesperson to do that. They can go online.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I don't want a salesperson because what they're trying to do is sell. What I want is a consultant who helps me solve a problem, right? That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
do. I'm trying to solve this problem. Yeah. Well,
and
so I know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
that is the change in sales, really.
Yeah.
And especially if we talk about challenger sales, which is about educating customers, supporting and
Mhm.
helping customers, making
Yeah.
the sales meetings valuable even when the customer doesn't buy anything. they
Mhm.
get value from the meeting. And that creates brand experience and preference for the company too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so I know that that the foundation for 180 Ops and kind of what direction you guys have gone came from one of your books, Path to Growth and Profitability. So I was just curious, how what does that look like? What was your journey like to move from book and theory, to turning that into a reality, an algorithmic reality, I guess a good way to say that. And then, how do you change that from concept to actual technology and production? Talk a little bit about that
Yes.
journey.
Well, the book is very much based on turning the 25 years of discovery and learning and success into coherent management model. And the theories I was writing about in the Path to Growth and Profitability book were something that I had previously, many of them I had previously already published in Finnish or in AdMap or Work, best practices
Mhm.
articles and so on. So it was the mission statement for 180 Ops, what we were doing, what is the change we want to do, how do we want to change the way B2B companies are managed. A
Mhm.
lot of those stories were still dreams when I wrote the book. but then working with a tremendous technical team, they have since then they have turned everything I wrote about into reality, and they are now in production, and we've gone way further. But knowing what you are trying to achieve is the first step towards success, and the book was really about that, what we want to uh,
Mhm.
succeed in, what we want to bring to the world, what kind of impact we want to deliver, and that was the story of the book. We were actually creating demand for technology by writing the book, and
Mhm.
it has served the purpose pretty well.
Yeah, amazing. Well, so this is kind of you mentioned data quality and data cleanliness before, and I can,
Mm,
among analysts and CRM kind of industry in general, we've known for years that especially in the Salesforce automation end of it, the data is pretty dirty. And of course it's
mm,
fragmented everywhere, right? Because you've got
yes,
Salesforce automation, you got marketing automation, you got, customer service, customer success, you got billing and CPQ and all these other things that use the customer data. So what's
yes.
your approach to consolidating this data? And then what do you think is essential for, why is that essential for building out these AI enabled go to market strategies, using agents and tools and generative AI, all these kind of cool things we
Mm,
talk about.
mm.
But you have to start with the data. What does that look like?
I think that the biggest challenge right now is that every single technology has its own AI, it has its own data, and they are running on their own, and there's no central brain, there's no central awareness or consciousness or
Mhm.
whatever you call it, that would make sense of the bigger picture. It's the fundamentals are data processes and architecture, and
Mhm.
you could, for example, have business IDs in ERP and contract management maybe, and
Mhm.
customer numbers in CRM. Now, if you don't have unified identifiers, you can't connect them. So there's no way of directly creating holistic views.
Mhm.
Um, Also, if you don't have business IDs there, you can't connect and enrich it with external data sources. So you can't actually, it becomes difficult. Um, you need to create understandable structures, like for example,
Mhm.
when I'm discussing with customers, they have customer numbers or IDs in their CRM and no business IDs, which means that it's impossible to run accounts in an effective manner because
Mhm.
you have the headquarters, then you have subsidiaries, and then you have offices.
Yeah.
And there might be headquarters and offices at the same level in CRM, considered as
Mhm. Yep.
identical.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it needs to be structured. You need to have a sense of the data. You need to create holistic
Mm,
connections between the data sets. Otherwise, it doesn't speak you anything, doesn't give you intelligence.
mm. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem even just from the name of the business itself, right? I mean, you could have several permutations of the same company and not actually be able to
Yes,
put the data together just because you couldn't figure out which ones that went together, right?
and you could have, for example, business ID in national, in international, with dash
Mhm.
or without dash, and so on. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's hard.
needs to be
Yeah,
clean.
yeah.
Needs to be clean.
It needs to be clean. Well, so when you talk about, AI enabled sales ops, what are the non-negotiables when you think about data quality?
There's a lot of factors relating to data quality, timestamps, entity linking, relations.
Mm,
Um, However, the non-negotiable is really you need to have an understanding of what is the environment and business logic you are working
mm,
on and what data points to prioritize, because not all written text and open fields and not it's not all as
mm,
valuable. And in order to get grip of this, you need to simplify, recognize the data points that really matter most and start with those. And you need to take steps like you start with the fundamentals, and then what the history is. If it sucks, you can't use it. Forget
mm,
about it. Clean it, and use the parts that are valuable, and then redirect the people to entry the better data for the day after and
mm,
tomorrow, instead of trying to get make sense of something that simply cannot be
mm.
used.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's the reality. Some things aren't gonna be
Yeah.
able to be used in the state they're in. Yeah, well,
No.
how long does this take? I mean, what's the timeline for a company to go from this current fragmented state? And obviously there's some variability based on size and number of data and amount of data and how bad it is and all that. But what's the timeline typically for them to move to an AI-enabled revenue intelligence type, approach?
has a really it really has a lot to do with scope. Also
Mm,
depending on the maturity of the starting point. It
mm,
could take from months to several years. If you, for example, look at
mm,
the large enterprises, data warehouse and data lake projects, it could take 2 years maybe, and it's still just data. It's not
right.
yet in a functional form.
Mm,
Uh, we've simplified this, and we've recognized the essential things, and for ourselves, um, I would say that reaching the first point of really being able to run with data and taking the technology in use is in about a quarter of a year. First results and insights
mm,
will be available in about a month, but our process is a step by step process, which first creates the fundamentals, then moves one step by at a time,
mm,
going
right.
further and deeper. And in 6 months, we are fully operational with everything we got.
Mm. But it sounds like you can get value pretty quickly out of some
Yes,
segment of that, and then you're continuing to improve that over a 6-month or so period. Yeah.
yes. So, for example, just making sales analytics available doesn't take long, which gives you a
Mhm.
view of how are we actually performing in
Mm,
renewal and upsells, cross-selling, new customer acquisition. How are our offerings performing in answer metrics like if we are getting new customers for new customer acquisition, which offerings are performing well, delivering rapid
mm,
time to money, high conversion rate, and decent average deal size, and which are then the ones you should never try to open the accounts with. That it takes a
mm.
year to close, and that you
Yeah.
have systems, so you can't. There are offerings that you simply can't turn profitable when you are trying to use them for your customer acquisition.
Yeah.
So
I
getting
mean,
these kinds of insights, it's a month, and you have
yeah.
it.
Yeah. It sounds like knowing what not to go after is just as important as knowing what to go after.
Definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, you talk a little bit about this in what we were just discussing, but about success. But I'm really curious when you dig into this. I mean, obviously, revenue is one way to measure success of this
Yes.
kind of implementation, but there's got to be more to that for consolidating, cleaning data, building this AI enabled sales ops. What do you think the best measures of success are?
It often has to do with, let's say, change programs. The program offices are creating different types of KPIs for different types of transformations, doing RevOps transformation or commercial excellence or sales transformation or OKR or whatever. Now, the KPIs, the fund monetary is what RevOps is really about. So monetary is clear. But then with AI also you can influence so many things like customer measures, the average revenue per account, retention, lifetime value, NPS. You can also look into sales measures like um, time to time to use for sales. Like the global average now is
Mhm.
30% of salespeople's time is used for the things that they are measured and rewarded by, and that's
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Time to money, average deal size, hit rates, overall pipeline and billing development. But there's also the human side, like employee satisfaction measures, reduction in sick leaves, employee turnover, or department success. How, for example,
Mhm.
how happy employees are about DNA or CIO work and their role in delivering
Mhm.
capabilities and help to their everyday lives. It-
Mm.
It's really something also to consider that
Yeah.
who are we actually trying to influence this work that we are working on.
Yeah. I mean, even just the job satisfaction numbers have to make a huge difference. And I know some of the numbers I've seen about onboarding were like takes, 3 to 6 months to get the sales rep just able to talk to a customer, 9 months to
Yeah,
get them somewhat productive, and in like 16, 15, 16 months for them to actually be, really proficient. But then unfortunately the average tenure is like 18 months. So about the
yeah,
time they're good, they leave.
they live. That we have the same result from Finland a few years
Mm.
back, but anyways, it was the average tenure of a salesperson was 1 year 9 months, and
Yeah.
then the break even generally happens at 2 years and 4 months. So hiring
Yeah.
new salespeople is counterproductive. So this is a sales
Yeah.
management problem with a big P. That you need
Huge
to
problem.
do something to keep your salespeople satisfied and happy and
Mm.
making their goals and exceeding them.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously for salespeople, they are very goal driven. You want that. But
Mm.
but at the same time, if they can't if you just simply aren't giving them the tools to get to that goal, you're not gonna have a happy workforce. I mean,
And
just won't happen.
in the disturbance of the what we have been now experiencing, like the economic policy uncertainty is at the whole time high right now.
Mhm.
Um, Sales directors report, I think it was from Gartner research, that plus 60% of sales directors struggle to um, adapt to the change because when
Mm.
macroeconomic changes are happening, there is one offering that stops selling, another one starts selling. One segment stops
Right.
buying, another segment starts buying. So it's about constantly reallocating your resources and revisiting your
Mhm.
KPI. And that kind of steering is something that also from the salesperson side, it feels like, okay, I now need to make 2 million more for this year. Right. So I have a sea of opportunities right there, but
Mm.
the opportunities are beneath the surface and I
Right.
don't have a sonar. So if we can deliver the
Exactly.
sonar, it makes
Yeah. Yep.
them happier. They stay longer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That resonates with the old, Navy guy in me too. I get that. That's, having a sonar, that'd be very useful. That's it. Um,
Yes.
so so you know, one of my favorite topics and something I've been researching a lot over the last couple of years is around, AI agents and how they could be used across lots of different use cases. But in this sense, it seems to me that, using agents to help in the data prep would be a real opportunity. So are you
Mm,
guys doing that? What does that look like? And then what kind of prep task can you offload to an agentic, agent versus
yes.
what you'd have to do manually?
So we have been implementing medallion architecture, which means that all the data that companies are delivering to us comes in as is format. So it's
Mhm.
ELT. Now, then from the bronze level, when we are harmonizing, cleaning, and fixing and recognizing
Mhm.
challenges with data, that process is about recognizing missing data and wrong formats and all that. There's a lot of automation, not agentic as such. It's more about automating and recognizing the missing data pieces, surfacing those, and then looking for answers. Um, in the agentic side, what we are doing is really preparing mathematical anomaly detection. When we
Mhm.
are analyzing, for example, potentials and this space in between what is the impact of standard industry classification, number of employees, turnover at different, it creates a three-dimensional topography of business, like
Mhm.
where are the biggest opportunities and why do we have this huge like 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 peak somewhere and then looking into trying to understand that what creates that peak, what is the background of that, and what should
Right.
we understand about it is something where we are now developing a agent for, just
Mhm.
to name one example.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so as we, move towards 2026 and beyond, and we hear lots of different numbers about projects that have been unsuccessful, some percentage are
Mm,
successful. And I think Gartner said something like 35% of chief revenue officers that have, agents and some Gen AI kind of operations built into their sales team. So what does this look like? Fully enabled AI revenue optimization, and
mm.
what advice do you have for those sales leaders? What can they do now to prepare, and what should they be working on and thinking about as they move into 2026 and beyond?
Right now, it's really about making the fundamentals ready for it. So you
Mhm.
need to concentrate on data processes and architecture. Make, get the fundamentals in place before you try to scale something. Uh, I think that I also hear that the agentic AI tests fail at the level of 90-95%. But the failure in my sense is the failure of getting something ready. Yes, they failed at that. But I'm absolutely certain that when these failures have happened, that the organizations have learned why they fail and what they need to improve. And it's really about the fundamentals. And
Mm.
what how we see this situation is that what we created is by accident really. We wanted to do this advanced analytics and
Mhm.
and we didn't realize what kind of value the technology would
Right.
have as an infrastructure piece
Mhm.
for agentic AI because
Right.
uh, that was not the point. We wanted to do a
Right.
technology that can deliver answers,
Mhm.
accidentally we actually created an infrastructure for agentic AI, cleaning, putting together and producing the critical outcomes. And so one of the options is to contact 180 Ops. We can help.
Yeah. Well, one of my instructors when I was in the Navy said this, and I've used this for years. It's better to be lucky than good.
Yes.
Well,
Sometimes it's also that
some
if you do right things, you get lucky more
yeah.
often.
Yeah, that's a fair statement too. Some of this too, I think, I've done a lot of surveys around generative AI and agentic AI and success, failure. And a lot of these are, did the project deliver the results that you intended? And I think, that's an interesting metric because a lot of times we go into that, you start to dissect and do a bit of, postmortem on the project, and you find that the problem was that they really didn't have realistic expectations of what the project would
Right.
deliver. And I think that was particularly around generative AI because it's a support tool, and now we're moving out of that into something that's an action tool, something that can actually do
Yes.
things for you, and move beyond just the I can give you, advice based on some questions.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
It's
But
exciting, I think, to think about this too, like where it could go.
it is. It definitely is, and I'm feeling that this is also the kind of time when we experience this, like what has been happening in the drug industry. You got one drug designed to make your mental health better, and then it turned out to help you get rid of smokes or have a strong erection.
That
Not
yeah.
intended, but
No.
the outcome was valuable anyway.
Yeah, yeah, unintended
And
consequences can be a benefit. They sometimes aren't, but yeah, no, that's good.
yes, yeah,
Well, so Tony, great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I agree with you. I think that we really do have to help sales teams focus down into that data problem
mm,
first and then build on that because there's so many opportunities, but you can't if you don't have the fundamentals, you can't really get to, that
no,
sort of benefit that you're looking for, right?
yes.
So but before I let you go, I did this, I always do this at the end of the show, and so I'm curious who you'll recommend this time, but could you recommend somebody for the audience, a thought leader, an author, blogger, podcaster even that you think the audience would, learn from and enjoy,
Mm.
and they could check out?
Well, this disambiguation podcast is really good.
Yeah, and you can
Let
particularly
me
check out
let
those
me
2
think.
episodes with Tony.
Yes, yes. Um, Recently, I've pretty much done like reading research and reading. Hmm,
Which is useful, but maybe not as entertaining
not
as,
not no no. My on my top of mind, it's 8:30. No, it's 9:15 in Helsinki right now, and it's been a
I
long
know,
day.
I know.
So forgive me. Sorry.
No worries. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you joining at 9 o'clock at night too. So that definitely useful and nice to get this down because, like I said, I think this is a really important topic for us to be working through. So Tony, thank you
Absolutely.
for joining again today.
Thank you. Very happy.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arionresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arionresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arion Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.